He's been through every single thing a person could be through publicly, having to constantly be lied on. It's not really that funny until you are in that person's shoes that's being lied on. You'll never understand what it feels like. That person is a human being. They have a family who has to read those lies. And that's not, and it's just not fair. But this administration is full of people with heart and soul. And they make me proud of them. Vice President, he makes me, well, I love both of them, but they're both powerful men, smart, strong, all of that. But both of them have a very uncanny ability to be someone that you relate to. I can relate to them. When I hear them speak, I know that they're one of us. Like, I know that they're not. Don't you guys agree? They have of the world. You know, they're still connected to the world and what's happening in the world with the younger people and older people.
So y'all see who we talking about today. It's your boy D Black Anglo-Saxon, and we back again. You know, Nicki Minaj got on this Turning Point USA situation and made some comments that weren't necessarily to her benefit. I think it's pretty entertaining, pretty hilarious. One, because I think that we aren't at a point where these things aren't necessarily predictable. The fact that they feel like Nicki Minaj is being wrongly accused of being a quote unquote C word, but not necessarily when Megan Thee Stallion or Democrats or people who pledge fealty, so the D.L. Hughley's of the world, and we all know who they are, who do the same thing for the other side, don't get critiqued. And I think that's very false, and I don't believe that that is true. I want to be very clear that people get critiqued on all different sides, and I don't necessarily even think that when it comes to Nicki Minaj having this conversation in particular, she's being critiqued at all because she is going to a conservative platform. I think the fact that she's going to speak with Erica Kirk, who is Charlie Kirk's widow, and it is not people hating Nicki Minaj again because she is flirting with the conservative. That's some of it, but a lot of it has to do with even more that you're going to a specific group of people who specifically used your name. Like Charlie Kirk specifically used her name as an example as to a certain prototype that doesn't or should not be given leeway or should not be given clout or any type of fame because of the quote unquote image and the debauchery that her music and that her image is associated with. So I do agree with people when it comes to the extent that you are using the social capital, the fame, and all of the clout that is given to you by a specific demographic, whether it be the trans barbs, whether it be the regular female barbs, the male barbs. Your whole thing is built in and around these specific demographics who Charlie Kirk, Erica Kirk, and Trump, Vance, and that whole regime vehemently speaks against. Now, I'm not going to go as far as to say that I think that Nicki Minaj should be canceled in totality, because I don't and have never put stock into entertainers in that way, because I do believe the entertainers are just that. But I think that the outrage in itself highlights the fact that our community specifically just is not in a place that understands that you all have given these people, our entertainers, our famous people, this class, this aristocracy of people who serve the actual power. You all have given them the power to be used as a bludgeon, to be used as a tool. Now, I don't know Nicki Minaj's intent in terms of how well she understands the political ethos or the political frameworks or just the landscape in terms of what move she is making. But what I will say is that this isn't any different from a person trying to expand their brand. And so, what I would say to the masses of people who are upset with Nicki Minaj, this is what I mean by quote unquote playing the game literally cuts us off at the head, because this is in a brand expansion move for Nicki Minaj to try to give and put herself in front of a different audience and play favor with a different audience for whether it be more clout, whether it be more social capital, whether it be to position herself to make a move. It is out of self-interest. And this is where we have to separate business from politics and understand that everybody who is good in business does not necessarily understand how their business interplays with the political body. Because when you see a person like Erica Kirk, white women understand how to double speak. And what I mean by that is you'll have Charlie Kirk, who was her husband, who can propagate all of these things about Nicki Minaj, black women, the black community, etc. And I know some of you all are going to say, well, some of the things that he said was correct. Yes, some of the things he said was correct, and some of the things he said was without the context added to it, because a lot of them bring in stats and a lot of them bring in specific trends without the context of the historical components and without the context of how it interplays with the current ecosystem and the current body, which is why Nicki Minaj is catching and getting the flack that she's getting, because it is her. It is her image. It is Trump's image. It is Vance's image. It is their ideology. It's all of these things interplaying together. Their ideologies, and I don't even think Nicki Minaj stands on any particular political ideology. And when I say ideology, I'm not talking about the parties themselves, because I'm not against people being conservative or Democrat, etc. I think people should use the vehicles that they are to the advantage that they can use them as. Because I'm not a super fan of this whole little independent movement that everybody is also doing, because I think it is I understand the intent, but I don't think it is well advised in terms of how politics works. You can be independent in terms of your ideological framework, but you should interact and engage with the two major parties, because the two major parties are going to hold all the social capital, all the political capital, all the institutional capital, and all of the money and the funds and the pooling as well. But for the Nicki Minaj case, what people have to understand is that she literally is being used as a tool and allowing herself to be used as a tool. And Erica Kirk is doing a wonderful, great job in using her as a tool. And I don't think anybody should be mad. If anybody should be mad, people should be mad at themselves. People should be mad at the fact that they have elevated people to these spaces to where they can be used and triage and create subterfuge in our own community. That's who you should be mad at, yourself. Because for everybody who wants to stand out for all of these entertainers, for all of these, wherever you want to find them, you all create them because they, the only reason can get invited to these spaces and on these panels and on these shows is because you all give and create the leverage for them by interacting with either their content, their art, or whatever. So you have yourself to blame. Is Trump and Vance and them going to use this as political capital? Absolutely. And this is why I tell y'all, we can't necessarily win in the overall chess match. You can win certain phases, but the overall chess match, we are losing because we don't understand and we consume and we think everything is hatred. People think that people are hating on Nicki Minaj because she is going into conservative spaces. For some people who are at a lower level of thinking, that may be very true. But for others, it is not the point, and it is not the issue that she is going into conservative spaces. It is how she is going into conservative spaces. How you go into these spaces matter, because I would say the same thing for people going into democratic liberal spaces. How you go into that space matters, and how you come out of that space matters. How you engage while you're in that space matters. And that is the difference in where you get critiqued or where you don't get critiqued, at least for me, right? But, and she talked about all of these differences and, and how Trump and them had to go through everything out front and out loud, et cetera, et cetera. It is a major placation, but again, it's more out of self-interest than anything. But I did want to get into this conversation that this young lady also brought into it, because I think it kind of highlights and get into when it comes to these different takes that people have as it relates to people hating Nicki Minaj, which I don't think is the case for being just in conservative spaces.
Black Republicans more than they hate racist white people. The reason why you're having such a visceral reaction to Nicki.
And so it's not about hating Black conservatives more than we hate racist white people. It's about understanding how you are undermining the collective movement and the collective push forward as it relates to being able to not have to acquiesce in the way that she is to get to where you got to go. Part of the issue is that you're playing the game, but you're only entrenching the game even further, because your acquiescence is creating a cycle to make everybody who wants to do this same or make this same play come after you have to do the same thing. And what people are saying is we're trying to move away from that. And that's what it more so is.
Minaj's behavior regarding the AmFest convention where she spoke at with Erica Kirk, the tweets of her praising Donald Trump and JD Vance, as well as her speaking at some event, bringing awareness to religious persecution somewhere, didn't care to learn, is because y'all move and operate as if Black people are a monolith. You don't want to accept the fact that Black people do align with the Republican Party.
So the thing, and I always say this, is that Black people are not a monolith, but us not being a monolith should not be a flex. And what I mean by that is you can have different stances and positions on how to achieve a particular set of outcomes, but the outcomes in which we are striving for should be monolithic. Because I am here to tell you, the liberal mafia is in lockstep with the conservative mafia. The gangster old party, the GOP, is literally in lockstep with the liberal mafia. They feed off of each other. It is just a matter of how they want to get to the end goal, which is ultimately deleveraging us as a group, because it's about resources, it's about competition, etc. But yes, in some ways we should be monolithic. And in this one, we should, because in this movement, in this endeavor that Nicki Minaj finds herself in, you have given an administration leverage, and not only leverage, but cover as they dismantle a lot of different policies that will just hurt us, which is why in some ways you don't see me a lot of the times going on binges and tirades against Donald Trump, because he is destroying and bringing everybody into niggerdom. And that is something that I am particularly happy about, because everybody wants us to be in this specific economic status and position and didn't necessarily want to have these conversations. And I just tell people, walk them. But yes, we should be a monolith in some ways, in the main way in that we need to have specific outcomes that we all agree on. How we get there, we can differ. It could be one camp over there, one camp over here, one camp over there, but the outcome has to be agreed upon.
their values aligned with the Republican Party. You have a hard time accepting the fact that there is a good number of Black people who do not align with identity politics. And while y'all sit there and huff and puff and scream about we are not a monolith, you want Black people to move like a monolith. We're not a monolith when Black people are showcased in a negative light. But you do not respect cognitive diversity. You do not respect the fact that there are Black people who align with the Republican Party because they share the same conservative values. Black Republicans now move and operate like a gay person in the 90s in the closet because, Lord forbids, if more Black women were to run for office as a Republican, you would drag their asses for filth because it's the one and only time where you're cool with Black female Republicans being on the receiving end of a lot of racism. I saw that in my home state.
So again, me personally, I'm gonna drag you for filth if y'all watch my content. I don't care if you on the red side, I don't care if you on the blue side. I be having more smoke for liberals because again, I am a registered Democrat because I am here in the District of Columbia, and it wouldn't even make sense to be a registered Republican in Washington D.C. because there is no leverage there. But what I would like to say to her point is that it's not so much that I think people will read people or Black women for filth for running in the Republican Party. I think again, it's how people are running, how people are engaging. Because Black women, for what it's worth, they getting critiqued for running in the Democratic Party the way that they have been. I don't know what circles or what people are consuming, but I hear people definitely critiquing Black women for how they engage in the Democratic Party. Now, is it more or less? Yeah, you probably are going to have more people who don't necessarily fall in line with being able to call it down the middle objectively because of how we've been conditioned over time. But what I will say though is people are waking up to that. And for what it's worth, the Republican Party, they're going to make you play the game a certain way because they've always had the leverage. As I always say on here, they make their white brethren play the game a certain way because a lot of Democrats and a lot of people who fall into the other party are literally just honorary or wannabe GOPs because they couldn't make the cut. They just fell into the Democratic Party. So, it goes both ways.
Y'all were cool about that. You don't respect cognitive diversity. You hate Black Republicans more than you hate racist white people.
Yeah, and that part, again, I got to disagree with that because I don't know what it is with, more than anything, I think we are in a place as a community where a lot of people are useful idiots and people don't know that they are useful idiots because there are a lot of different competing interests. And like I said, for even the people who are mad at Nicki Minaj, you gave her that platform knowing that she probably doesn't necessarily understand the politics of how things works. Like when a lot of people talk about how Trump is stupid, I don't think he's stupid as a whole. But when you talk about the fact that when it comes to policy and when it comes to governance, I don't think he's smart. But when it comes to marketing, when it comes to the communications piece, I think he is very brilliant in that way. And I think you have to give people credit where they are brilliant at to be effective in how you approach being competitive with them. And so this whole debacle, for what it's worth, I think we at a point now where none of this stuff's a surprises and we shouldn't even really be up in arms about anything like this, to be honest, because we know this. We know that people are self-interested and about brand expansion. So, but let me know what y'all think.